Hey, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast, your weekly dose of fertility wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, and integrative fertility coach. This is your go-to podcast for all things to naturally nourish your fertility, embody womb healing, and reclaim your feminine power to accelerate your path to pregnancy. My expert guests and I will be having intentional conversations to discuss the many facets of a thriving, fertile foundation, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as women on our journey to motherhood. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. In this episode, I'll be talking with Tiffany O'Hearn. She's an energetic healer and spiritual guide who incorporates various modalities, including TFT or thought field therapy. Her work involves guiding clients through clearing their programs, decisions, and traumas, using TFT tapping and various healing modalities. And in this episode, we'll be diving into how our subconscious can actually limit us without us realizing, and how we can set our energy, intentions, and subconscious towards what we desire and healing for our future or present children. So welcome, Tiffany. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And I'd love to just dive right in. How did this healing work find you? Because I feel like everyone always has a really fun and interesting kind of backstory to how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the platform and the audience as well. And I'm grateful to be here. And so that being said, as far as how did it find me? And I love that you asked it in that way. And I've been on a journey, and I think we all have, but there's some knowingness in me at a very young age that like life wasn't exactly the way it appeared. And so I spent a lot of time as a child. I remember thinking to myself, adults, you're an adult when you are an adult. And then you just make good choices, right? Because that's what they tell us. Adults make good choices. And then I was like, no, that's not true. That's actually not true at all. And so it's just been this constant theme for me of surface and then renewal, you know what I mean? And so I had gotten divorced. Well, I had my daughter in 2016, and that really changed my life. And prior to even getting pregnant, I was very intentional with it. I was very intentional with who I wanted to be, right? Because I cannot, under any circumstance, control my future child in any capacity. So where in this do I have this sort of control? And it was within me. And so I want to be a better person, to be a better mom. And so that really starts to amplify this development, this sort of self-development, spirituality journey within myself. And just to get rid of all of these old programs that we hold about how to raise a child, because they're outdated if they were ever dated to begin with. And so how do I become the best version of myself? And then fast forward a few years later, getting divorced and going, okay, who is that person that showed up in that marriage? And how do we make sure that she doesn't show up again? And so that was a whole other journey and level of healing. And then to kind of come full circle within myself to say, okay, I know what I'm here to do. And I know why I'm here. And I'm going to be very intentional with it. And then things just truly just started to evolve for me, with me, around me. And I think more of it is just I've just been bound and determined to be peaceful and calm and loving most of the time. Mm-hmm. Not all of the time yet, but most of the time. And that's how I choose to show up into this world. And I choose to be that way for my daughter, and hope to inspire other parents to do the same, because so much of our childhoods in our own self sort of co-create our future childhood experience for our children. And so how do you take what's really good about it? Because we can all find something really good about our childhood, right? And take the things that like, this here is maybe I could have done things a little differently, or I would have liked to have been seen differently, or things like that. And now we don't know for our child how they want to be seen or witnessed and this and that, but we can do our best within ourselves to heal and transmute to be the best version of ourselves. Because the opposite of that is our children are constantly going to trigger us. It's by design. It's by design. And so these become little programs and invitations for us to heal, right? Not only for ourselves, but by virtue for our children. And I think it's actually the most beautiful gift that we can provide our children and or our ancestors by and large, because you can heal your traumas and old programs, and they will heal through your ancestral line and for the future. And it is just, I'm sorry, I just feel it's one of the most beautiful gifts that you could possibly give to the
Mhm.
future and the past.
Amazing. So many things I want to touch on there. Let's see. Let me go back to the beginning. I had it. Um, yeah, just knowing that and speaking to how you don't know how your child wants to be in the world. And I think that, like you said, parenting is quite outdated because a lot of us grew up with our parents wanting us to go down a certain path, right? Maybe your parents were doctors and they've always been doctors and that's the path they want you to go down, but maybe you'll want to be an artist or something like that. So I think that's just a beautiful reflection of how we can show up as parents for our children because it is really hard to kind of shake off those patterns that we did grow up with, especially if maybe you did have a parent who was putting that pressure on you to be something that you weren't. And then it also sounds like you went through a lot of ego deaths, right? Coming from a woman to a mother and then going through that divorce. And I think taking responsibility for how you were showing up and how you can evolve and be better from that is really beautiful. And I think it's really hard for a lot of us to see that because our ego wants to hide it, right? Our concept of self. They don't want us to see those kind of dark, shadowy places, but you're so right. Like this preconception phase, being intentional in what you're doing to prepare your body, mind, and soul for pregnancy. I feel like we get so distracted with the perfect cycle or our imbalanced hormones or whatever it may be, or not getting pregnant on the timeline that we want to get pregnant, that we don't even think about that. Like how we want to consciously conceive our children and the impact that that will have on our ancestors, like you said, and our future children and their children. So I think that your story is just a real beautiful reflection of the potentiality that's there, right? In this really beautiful, delicate, miraculous phase of life. So I love that. And I love to dive in. I've never heard of TFT. So I'm familiar
Sure.
with EFT,
Mm-hmm.
emotional freedom technique. I feel like there's got to be some similarities, but I'd be curious to know what the differences are as well.
Yeah, sure. So TFT was founded by Richard Callahan back in the early 70s, if I'm not mistaken. And he discovered that people could really transmute the density of their energy, so to speak, right? Around these programs and traumas and ancestral and past life karma and all of this. And so EFT was born sort of as I don't want to say shortcut, but it kind of is. Let me be clear by say, if you know how to do EFT tapping, then do the heck out of it, right? There's not a this or that or better than or whatever the case may be. Sometimes with EFT tapping, what you'll find is they resurface, and it's purely because we just haven't found the right program or the right trigger. Because EFT is meant to calm; it's not meant to necessarily release per se. And so when I do healing with people, I use their energies to guide the session. So I don't use my own because we get a much different result. Additionally, our body is going to hold all of these wounds in our organs and then our subconscious as well. And so when you say something like, I want to get pregnant, and I say, okay, say that for me out loud, and it comes back as what we call weak, your subconscious isn't on board with it.
Mm.
I want to be a good mom. It comes back weak. Your subconscious isn't on board with it. There's nothing wrong with that. Somewhere in your life, someone shared with you, and you took that as a program that I'm not going to be a good mom, right? And it could be something pretty mundane to the average seer, right? But then we start digging in and you go, no, that's a huge wound. That is something that got buried in that subconscious of mine that I decided. Because whenever there's a trauma, and it doesn't matter the scale of trauma. A trauma could be me stubbing my toe. Do you know what I mean? But I make a decision in that moment. The decision could be that the bureau is in the wrong spot. Okay, we can move it. But let's just say, well, and here's a perfect example. And I use this example a lot. So I was in the ocean when I was a child, and there was a bunch of adults around. There was a huge untippable raft that was in the ocean. Shouldn't have been there, but that's neither here nor there. I was on the raft. It was me and one other girl. The wave came in and it folded the raft, and I got trapped underneath it. All I saw was darkness and waves. And when I started healing, I realized that, wow, I have a real fear of water. So much so that I was having high blood pressure and like symptoms of water retention as I start going through this. And so I come to this memory, and I got washed up to shore. And I remember seeing my mom up on the beach, chatting and laughing with her friends. And I knew in that moment, nobody cared if I lived or died. I carried that with me. I said to my mom after I healed it, I said, my mom, can you believe that this? She said, no, I was right there. We have two totally different experiences. And it doesn't matter who is right, because her experience is one thing and my experience is a total other. And so I take this trauma, right? This program that I made, that nobody cares if I live or die, which is pretty enormous. And it's not that it shows up in every situation, but there are certain moments where it will surface, but we don't know it at the time. We don't know, oh, that's the program. And so we are so gentle when we start really shifting with people to understand what their actual programs are. And so when I'm in a session with somebody, I'll just take notes. And the notes that I'm taking are things when you say, oh, I'm never going to amount to anything, or I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't have a lot of confidence. And I'm writing down feverishly all of these things that you write, because these are your programs. It doesn't matter if I'm your mom and I say, Katie, that never happened. You still hold it. It's still a wound. It still exists. It's yours to heal. It's yours to clear.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So with the TFT, are you like, how does it work?
Sure. Yeah. So I apologize for not
Oh no,
embellishing on that a little more.
I love everything that you just shared. You shared it so beautifully, but I'm just curious how it works because I'm very intrigued now that you explain like that the EFT is almost surface level and it is really calming in the moment. So I am quite curious about the TFT and
Sure.
how it can release and what that
Yeah.
looks like.
Perfect. So let's just say you have a worthiness issue, right? And the program is nobody cares about me. Let's just say that that's it for you. So we take that program of nobody cares about you, right? And we gently start to shift the subconscious using energy meridian, because the side of the hand is one organ of the body. Then all of our fingers, so there's 15 points that we use, and they're all going to correlate to a different energetic meridian on our body. So this is the bladder meridian. So yeah, there's trauma trapped in there. So we're going to release it. But so through your energy, I would take us to where we need to go, first starting with the sort of reprogramming. And it sounds something like this. I want to get over, I'm not good enough. I can get over, I'm not good enough. I will get over, I'm not good enough. I am over, I'm not good enough. I've always been. And it kind of goes like that. So we're taking this small program and we're gently nudging the subconscious to this new belief, this new knowing that, yeah, I don't need this anymore. And then there's a couple of other things that we infuse in there, but you tap your points as we're going through that, and that helps to release it from the energetic body. We also, if it's trapped in the chakras or the dantians, then we utilize this method as well to just beautifully. So at the end of it, if you're like, if I say, how does this feel in your body? And you're like, well, it's a 10. I'm so triggered that I'm not enough. And I check back, okay, where are we at now? Oh, we're at a 6. Oh, I don't feel it anymore. And that's what we want. We want it so that when you say your program, that you have no feelings towards it. It doesn't mean that it erases your feelings. It just erases, or it doesn't erase. If we take a dense ball of energy, that's I'm not enough, right? And we're going to take it. And by the time we're done, they'll just be energetic particles within you, but they're not clumped together in that I'm not enough anymore. And then we gently invite back in, yeah, you are enough. You are worthy. You are all of the things. And so when I'm working with clients, we keep that number because I want you to feel nothing. I don't want you to feel any energy towards this new program or the old program, so to speak. And I was just working with a client just before I hopped off this, or excuse me, got onto this call. And as we're talking, we're getting to it. We start with business, we get to it, talking about the mom, and then all of a sudden she says, I'm trapped and I can't grow. That's the program. That's the onion. Right? The middle of the onion is I'm trapped and I can't grow. She's felt that since the day she was born. And so we could peel back some of the onion layers, but if I can find the real program in there, well, then it just beautifully transmutes all the other ones.
It just like dissolves from the inside out.
Yeah, essentially so. And I mean, it's really beautiful. And I'm a working subject for how well this truly works because I spend a lot of time and energy on healing and clearing myself for my family, for my friends, and for my future clients. Because I want to be as clear as possible, because I want people to know that you can become the creator of your life and that our wounds keep us as the victim. Our subconscious limits us and keeps us as the victim. It's not on purpose. It's designed to keep us safe. But we are all beautiful. We all heal here on this journey, and healing is there is an opportunity for you. And our children, I'll tell you, they highlight the ass out of that for us. And so any mamas on there going, oh yeah, my daughter does this or my son does that. It's not they do it. It's how you receive it. And so it's that gift right there, that cute little package. If you open it up, it says, heal me, please. It's a gentle nudge.
And I feel like for a lot of women, when you're trying to conceive and it's not happening, that's like the first time where that unworthiness wound is really just like neon sign flashing really bright because it's really potentially the first time in your life where you weren't able to achieve something by quote unquote working hard. And I know that I experienced this for myself too, right? I'm a pharmacist. I went to school. I studied. I got good grades. And you check off all these boxes. And then creating a baby is just one of those things where it's not like checking off 1, 2, 3, and then you get a baby. It's not that easy. And I love how you say it really is a gift, right? Whether your life is mirroring to you patterns that are coming up while you're trying to conceive, or maybe you already have kids and you're trying for more. And yes, your little children are like, oh my gosh, they trigger you so much. But if you can shift your perspective, kind of like how you were saying, from, oh my gosh, they did this again to upset me. It's no, I love how you said it. That is how you're perceiving it. So I really loved how you explained that. And do you have anything else you want to share, especially from a fertility perspective, how our subconscious is limiting us? Because I
Sure.
think for a lot of people, hearing about the subconscious is new. And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can be like, well, what even is that? So if you could dive a little bit deeper in that.
Yeah, sure. And it's such a great question, right? Because you're dealing with people who are upset. They're upset. They're already triggered, which by virtue is a great way to heal because you're already in it. You're already living it. And so a couple of things come to mind. The first one is become unattached. Whoa, how do I become unattached? Because that truly is. And I remember I had tried 4 times for my daughter. And on the third try, I thought I was pregnant and I wasn't, right? And it felt like a huge loss. And then after I wiped away the tears, I said to myself, my baby's not ready for me yet. It's not that I'm not ready. My baby's not ready for me. And that was a huge shift for me because then it was like, well, what do I need to do to get more ready for my baby from an energetic, from a spiritual standpoint? But that unattachment is huge. And that's very difficult to become unattached when you're so in it. So it almost sounds, how can we even do that? But if we think about this sort of infinity spiral, it's just, right, just to be okay within it. And then how do we heal? Because we have our subconscious. So a couple of things come to mind. If you're not able to conceive, a couple of things surface for me already is one, do you feel worthy? And now you can say you feel worthy, but if I tested for you, that's a little different because your subconscious our body is always contracting or expanding, right? And if we're not as in tuned, I mean, heck, I'm not always that in tune to the contraction, right? Then we're probably going to get a different answer there, right? But the worthiness, right? You can really feel into that. And if you are honest with yourself, you'll come up with it. Do I feel worthy to be a mom? Am I in the right relationship to bring a baby in? And I got to be honest there. I think that one's a huge one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have our own mama wounds, and they are the one that showed us what mothering is, what motherhood means. And if there's any type of conflict within there, I think that can greatly show up in our ability to produce and or reproduce. And so our subconscious will limit us, right? And perhaps maybe you don't even subconsciously want a baby. And that may sound like a huge conflict if you're listening to this. And trust me when I tell you, it comes from a place of love and it is not necessarily directed. It's just to start the subconscious kind of shifting too, to feel into it, because you'll get the answers that are there if you really want to know them. Do you know what I mean? They're there for us. And so let's say you say to me, I'm here. I want to have a baby and it's not working. First of all, I would say it's not working. Let's clear that. We start removing the attachment to the outcome. Will it provide you a baby? That's not for me to know. There's unseen forces however, can you get your mind and your subconscious and your spiritual side unattached to it? Now, there's this woman that I work with or have worked with, and she's in her 50s. And when I tell you that she weeps openly every time you ask her if she has a child or a family, she's that upset about not being able to have conceived. So that's a huge wound that is walking around outside of her body. And I have nothing but compassion. And I hope that someday she comes to see me for healing if she's called to do so, because it is so sensitive and delicate. We are women. We are meant to conceive. And I can't imagine what it feels like for those that can't. And my heart goes out. My heart truly does go out. And there is help for you, whether it's in the medical world or this other, and it can work together, right? When you have this energetic shifting as well. And we can do it as a group. Like I can do it with spouse and a mom, because there's a lot of interplay here, right? And so perhaps ancestral. Sometimes I have my own little fears about being a mother, and I think to myself, that must be ancestral. Because why would I have that? Why would I have that fear of, let's say, miscarrying, right? And so that might be another place to go, is to work with the ancestral lines to see what kind of wounds, because we can almost agree that they've had these wounds throughout the ancestry as well. If you want to get into past life karma, I'm there for you too. Whatever we need to do to kind of heal and get your thoughts, because that's what it is. Our thoughts are the most magnetic thing in the world. They can attract what we want if we have all of us vibrating towards what we want. And you may say, well, I want a baby. But if we get into some of these subconscious programmings, it's probably the lack thereof. And that's also really key. You want a baby, you can't have one. Immediately, you're in a sense of lack. Mm-hmm. And it's not your fault. And I say that so gently. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of little programs that we're carrying here, and it can change for you. It can change for you so that you're crystal clear in what it is that you want for now and for the future as well. It's really just being intentional and becoming the creator of your life and not letting somebody else dictate what's good for you or what's not good for you. There's been many of instances where we've heard around the world people say, the doctors told me I would never, and then I have 5, right? So I don't believe any of that. We can create what we want to create if we're crystal clear on it.
100%. And that was going to be my next question, is how can someone who is struggling to get pregnant and maybe in that state of lack and not having and not good enough, how can they begin to set their intentions and really elevate their energy to match what they are truly desiring?
Sure. So instantly, of course, I'm going to say energy healing. That would be my first go-to. But outside of energy healing, like how else can we shift that? And there's a beautiful exercise that I'm happy to share. So what you would do is you would just take both of your fists and you just rub them right on the upper chest here. And so this is our kidney meridian, and this is our chi, this is our life force, this is our energy. And a lot of times we have these really polarizing thoughts, ideas, ruminations, whatever you want to call them. Let me ask you, when was the last time you saw what you were feeling, felt what you were feeling, and then lovingly accepted it anyways? So it might look like this. Even though I can't have a baby, it's okay. I still love and accept myself. Even though the doctors say I can't have a baby, it's okay. I still love and accept myself. Even though I haven't had a baby yet, it's okay. I still love and accept myself. Even though I don't know if I'm going to be a good mom, it's okay. I still love and accept myself. And so you can keep going. I call it kind of like a tirade, right? Just keep going. And this is where you don't have to be all love and light. Even though I'm so mad that I can't have a baby, It's okay. I still deeply and profoundly love myself.
Mhm.
Love yourself because of it, not in lack of it. And it's just a great exercise just to kind of shift those energies, just even the slightest. But outside of that, like I said, find things to make you feel good and happy and joyful. Invite more joy and happy to your life. I mean, that's almost key. Spend more time in nature. Disconnect from the social media. Truly think of a baby. A baby is just beautiful and loving. And so how do you mirror that environment for your new baby? And those are just a couple of ideas that are just kind of flowing to me, but that's certainly where I would start. And I also want to say, yes, this is very simple. No, it is not easy,
Mhm.
right? It's, hey, Katie, just don't think that way. And you're like, got it. It's very simple, but it's not easy. And so we have to work very slowly with it. When we're looking to change a ton of programs, which I imagine there are without speaking to anyone individually, but there's a lot of programs there. How do we gently acknowledge them, love ourselves anyways, and find ways to feel good and happy inside, right? Create the environment that you want this beautiful baby to be in. Be intentional with it and become unattached, which may sound like a paradox, but it's not if we really start to kind of shift some of those energies where you say, okay, I really want this. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. And
Mhm.
we take the power out of it by saying that's okay too. That's how we unattach from it. This is what I really want. And it's okay if it doesn't happen.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah, just you can almost even think, oh, what is the worst case scenario? I don't have a child. Will I still be safe? Will I still be loved? All of those things. And then I feel like it takes that pressure off of, okay, the world isn't going to end. I'm not going to die. So I love how you brought up nature too, and just turning your phone off and unplugging, because a lot of what I speak to is connecting back to our intuition. And I feel like it's so hard, whether you're trying to conceive or not, in today's age. We have so much noise going around us, so many things to do, in places to be. And then when you're trying to conceive and it's not working, it like makes that noise even louder, I feel like. And you just become more and more disconnected from yourself. So I agree. I know in your bio that you had sent me, you mentioned that like nature is your haven. And it is for me too. And just going outside and just being, it doesn't have to be a formal meditation. You could just be sitting there and soaking the sun and listening to the birds, and definitely leaving your phone inside for sure. And I feel like you'll be able to hear those little nudges that your body is wanting to give you. So I love that you had brought that piece up for sure.
It's just what I call a soul's whisper. And in order to connect to the whisper, we have to be still.
Hmm.
We have to be silent. And I don't mean quiet, I mean silent within our minds and our bodies and our souls. And nature is the fastest way to do that. It
Hmm.
really is. Put your back up against a tree and stick your feet in a little brook, and life changes pretty dramatically. And then also you take your intentions. Take your intentions outside. Intentions are great inside, mantras are great inside, but if we take them outside, they're amplified to the hundredth degree. And if we think about it, how do we want love by having a baby, right? We want love. Like, we can't dismiss that. We want to love and we want to show love. That is, we want a baby. And so, how do I show more love? Would also probably be where I would say to connect with next. How do I show more love to everyone? Because immediately we want to retract our love because we're not getting what we want. But there's that karma spin to it too. So, how do we also give more love? And not seeing it as the absence of love. Think about how many people your baby will have to love. How do we amplify the love that's already around us and grow that, nourish that, flourish that? You know what I mean? And again, will it come for you? I can't say for sure. I'm not of that power but at the end of that, whether you do or don't, you'll be well. And I think that that's the most important thing. That
Hmm.
you will be well. You will not only be well, you're going to thrive and be joyful and happy within it.
Hmm.
And how we can do that. It is our right to be joyful and happy in this life. not only for ourselves, but for our future children. And we get to do that. So I'm just asking that you choose you, right? Because so often about this is choosing a baby. But I think that that's where we need to unfocus. We need to choose ourselves first, because we hear this all the time. I will do anything for my child. I will give them anything. They are the world to me. And I have to say, that's great. We do need to love our children, and they should be our number one, but they can't be our only. And as my daughter says, Mama, if I'm your number one, then where are you? She said, I should be number one. Gosh, they sure do tell us how to be, right?
Wow.
But she's 7 years old. She says, Mama, you need to love yourself first. And I said, you're exactly right. We need to be that love for ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. Put your oxygen mask on first, and then you're modeling that to your children as well. And I think that that's a habit much easier to be instilled and cultivated in the preconception phase versus in the thick of like postpartum with a newborn, a toddler. It's going to be really hard to cultivate that love and putting yourself first. So, yeah, I love that you mentioned that. And I know that you have a free offer for any of the listeners, either a free healing session or an astrology reading. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about that and where they can find you, connect with you, learn
Sure.
more about you.
Yeah. Thank you. So I also do astrology, and I infuse that through most of my clients with their permission, of course. And the reason why I infuse astrology into that is because it's our cosmic blueprint. And so it very much can highlight, especially when we're looking at fertility issues, then I want to look where your moon is. I want to look where there's some keys that I might look at to help us get to the so-called reason or the program within you. And so the birth charts really help with that. Additionally, I do the energy healing sessions, so you can choose one or the other. They're both the same value, and I'm happy to do one or the other. And then as far as connecting further, I do a lot of group workshops, and you really inspired me now, because I think I need to do a fertility group clearing workshop. And the thing about group clearings that I find really powerful is that you have more people focused on the same intention. Mm-hmm. Right. And so just thinking off the top of my head, I haven't thought about it before, but right, some of those programs we probably work with is worthiness. And I'm ready for my baby. Let's get you energetically ready for it. Like there's things that I think that can be done in a group healing session that I think would really be beautiful to have. So stay tuned for that. But all of my information is up on my website at heartinsoulhealing.com. And I have all my group events there, as well as following me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. And if there's anything that I can leave with you, it is that you are love. And how much more love can you give to receive, and just amplify that and use it as that soul's whisper to find where it is that you need to heal. And if this feels at all calling to you or inviting to you, there is support, whether it's through me or somebody else. I don't care, right? As long as the person that declares finally, yes, I need some help. Well, then I trust that you will receive that in the best ways possible.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much for being here, Tiffany, and sharing your wisdom and your passion with everyone. And definitely keep me up to date if you do a workshop like that, so I can share it and support you and any woman who is open to receiving that. So thanks so much.
I sure will. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you and the listeners, and I wish you all a beautiful life.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.